Hello, hello, and welcome to the Cornfield. I'm Jamie Beeman. This week I share with you part one of my epic conversation with my friend, actor, influencer, and podcaster, the amazing Brandon LaShawn Curry. So here we are, my friends. I am joined by the incredible Brandon LaShawn Curry, looking fetching today in a tank top.
Everyone. I'm here.
You can't see him if you're listening to this podcast, just audio, but I got to tell you, you're looking good. You are looking good as usual, fit and flirty. I'm so glad you joined me. I've already introduced you with all kinds of praise and admiration for you and how we sort of fell for each other as friends for the minute we looked at each other a few years ago.
Yeah.
I've also told people that you're my hero. You're like one of my heroes. You really are. I want to be you when I grow up.
Well, I'm just pretending to be Whitney Houston, so you choose.
Oh dear.
It's attainable.
I think you're going to end up better off than Whitney did. I predict.
One thing I've learned in life is to not make any what's the word I'm looking for? To not make any assumptions. And I just one day at a time.
That's smart. Very smart. There's a lot of assuming going on. A lot of assuming. A lot of prognostication from end of days to end of whatever, end of,
oh my God, which has been my whole
end
life.
Of women.
beginning of my whole North Carolina, little gay boy from North Carolina, just, being preached upon about how it's coming. I'm like, no, we're here. We've arrived. It is the end of the world.
So I've already told everybody what a great actor and singer and dancer you are. And you, I also said, because in my estimation, because I follow you on the Insta, I think of you as an influencer, not like influencer in that you are trying to amass followers and things, but that like you do his beautiful, beautiful hands, and he gets these gorgeous nails done, y'all. You got to follow Brandon on Insta. I'll give you links. But
I actually just broke up with my nail tech, you guys. So send
prayers.
The longevity, and for all my girlies, all of my peoples out there who get their nails done. Okay, it is not a small penny. It's a big coin. Okay.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, no matter where you guys see me now, today, if you go to my Instagram right now, you might be like, oh, well, that bitch, who cares? Me, at the end of the day, in my heart and core of core, I am cheap. I am a cheap bitch. So I'm not going to spend a certain amount of money on an experience that's not going to be longevity. I'm not going to get my nails done every Wednesday. I might go every other Wednesday. I might go every third Wednesday. But I'm not going every week and dropping several bucks on a nail. So I'm trying to find a new person. It's so funny. When we first met, I actually was influencing. So that little scooter that I used to ride around, I got that for free so that I could talk about it.
I remember this. Yes.
So I used to have actually way more followers than I do now.
What happened to them?
Well, I just stopped. I realized that I wasn't the girl who wanted to wake up every single day and tell everybody what I'm eating, what I'm drinking, and listen, let me just tell y'all, I was getting the shit for free. Don't get me wrong. But you have to try all this stuff in order to have an opinion about it. And unlike a lot of the hosts that y'all like, I'm not going to talk about a product that I haven't used, or I'm not going to talk about an experience that I actually haven't had. So it just became exhausting. And, I just was kind of over it. And now I'm like doing other things that mean more to me. And it's just easier to plug out. But yeah, no, I think I've lost, since we first met, I probably have lost like 3,000 followers.
Whoa. Well, I don't even have that many. In fact, I'm learning on the job that like I write a weekly essay for Substack.
Mm-hmm.
And that usually happens like late at night, and it's like this like flood. Like I have like 13 drafts going simultaneously, and whichever one my insomnia lets me finish is the one that ends up on Substack. But it makes me show up, and then I just started the podcast, and I don't know. I mean, that's a lot of work to just keep things cooking.
Yeah.
But yeah.
It is.
Yeah. And when I think of you as an influencer, what I really mean is you influence people just by being yourself and saying, hello, this is me. I think you're one of those people, Marianne Williamson, why is she running for president ever? Undermining her credibility. I don't know what's going on. But she has that great quote where she says, the quote about, people who let their light shine, give other people permission to, like, you're the kind of person who just by being yourself and fearlessly and unapologetically, authentically being yourself, you give other people permission to do the same. That's what I mean by a real influence that you have.
Well, thank you. And that is a form of protest, especially from where I was raised,
Talk to us a little about that. Tell us a little about
that. I'm from Charlotte, North Carolina. My parents were very young when I was born, and they, young Black couple from the South. I did not grow up in an environment. I feel like a lot of times what I see today, just by virtue of where and how I live my life at this point in time, it's very full of art and culture and wealth and opulence. And I see a lot of these people who come from these very privileged backgrounds who, whether they mean well or not, we can even dive deeper into that.
Okay.
They are speaking on behalf of people who who are living the experience. They're advocating for people, but they actually don't know these people. They don't have a connection with these people. And so for me, growing up, it was less about, screaming to everyone that will listen, and it was just like getting to school and home and getting down to the city and back to my home without getting assaulted or having to square up and whoop a motherfucker ass. Because the thing that a homophobe will learn the quickest from, and listen, y'all can say what y'all want, violence is not the answer. You're not going to beat my ass. You're not going to come into my space and put your motherfucking hands on me, and I'm just going to let that happen. Hell no. So for a lot of my upbringing was knowing when to fight, literally knowing when and if it's what it's gonna cost me. Because here's the thing, I cannot go out and fight every single day. I cannot get into these confrontations every single day of my life. So being someone who lives at the intersection of being gay and being a part of the LGBT community, and even sometimes within the LGBT community, I have to windmill and whoop a bitch ass.
More and more. It's happening more and more.
There's a caste system. So I have learned when and when not to cuss a bitch out, when and when not to let a motherfucker know. Because simply coming into certain spaces and existing in these spaces with all of the elegance and the grace of a Diahann Carroll.
Oh, don't get me started.
I need 2 rooms because I cannot sleep next to my clothing, honey.
We're coming back to Diahann.
She's one of my idols. And, these women, when I think about Diahann Carroll, when I think about Josephine Baker, when I think about Dorothy Dandridge and Diana Ross, these women who were very Black women and who existed in predominantly white spaces. Okay. Yes. By virtue of the things that they did well. And I am that girl. I like art. I like fine things, and I do them quite well, if I must say.
Yeah, you really do. You guys need to see the special boudoir that Brandon has in his beautiful home with his beautiful partner Will up in Woodstock, New York. I call him the for real housewife of Woodstock, New York. But with the makeup mirror, with the full lights and the whole smear. I mean, living the dream.
And these women, they did not subscribe. There was, there's different kinds of protests. There was Nina Simone, there's Grace Jones, there's these women who are in your face. I'm moving to Africa. This is fine. I accept all of it. But I also subscribe to the younger people that I want to help to save and actually implement, because I am someone who went from low income bullshit to, so I can speak to these communities from a place of experience. I'm not coming from a place of, I'm a bougie ass bitch from Greenwich and I'm going to talk about how people live in the inner cities of Atlanta, Georgia. Girl, you don't even know what the inner city looks like. It's actually more nice than it's ever been. But I digress. I've always adopted that mentality of no. I'm not going to bang the door down. I'm going to go and I'm going to be accepted. I'm going to be beloved in these spaces. And so you definitely see a bitch like me in spaces and people do a double take. And I don't let it be my business whether they're doing the double take because they don't want me there, whether they're surprised that I'm there, or whether they're happy to see some new blood in the game. It's not my business to decide what that is. It is my business to let all of you motherfuckers know I'm here.
Right.
I'm going to be here when I feel like fucking being here.
Right.
And you might want to tap me on my shoulder and ask me where I got these pants. That's about as far as it's going to go.
You know, and it does. And I've seen you in far less than a pair of pants. I mean, people, I don't want to give away, you know, all of the secrets, but it wasn't much of a secret. We were doing a show in Fayetteville, Arkansas. Now, granted, Fayetteville is like the Austin, Texas of Arkansas. It's like a little tiny blue dot college town. But I have to tell you, first of all, Brandon is, you know, beyond fit and lovely and live. And one day, no joke, this person, this diva, went zooming through the streets of Fayetteville, Arkansas on this motorized scooter that she got for free.
Instagram, thanks.
In a pink Speedo. Zoom through the streets of Fayetteville, Arkansas. I'm telling you. And I think it's interesting because you may think in your head the thing like, I don't want anyone to misunderstand this thing of I'm here, you know, don't fuck with me. It's not that. It's literally you come into spaces and you go, I'm here. But I'm also, and this is the thing I try to teach the youngins, because, and we'll talk about this. I don't know how you deal with situations where we're in a culture that's telling people that they're unsafe in every space they go into, and it must be made safe through a series of rituals and the constant vigilance of, are you microaggressing me? And, you know, I don't know how you could do what you do with that mindset. It's impossible. And to me, it's more like what I see in you is, I'm here, this is me, and I'm interested in you. I'm not interested in telling you how to address me. I'm not interested in telling you your behavior. Because I will
tell you how not to address me.
By what? How?
Well, if I don't like how you're approaching me, if I feel like you're being disrespectful, then I think one thing that I've learned in, you know, my few years, because I'm out of the 20s and I'm starting to realize, oh yeah, people, they will address you differently. It's, you know, there's the young baby gay twink era of your life, and then you start to grow out of that era and you start to see how, you know, the value.
Little girls growing up.
Which, you know, listen, I will be Iman. I will be fine. I'll be.
Don't get me started with Iman. Okay, you know, I launched her makeup line. You know,
we gotta get you.
She's
she would remember, or she would pretend.
She would remember. I bet she'd pretend to remember, and that would be fine. Back at Henry Bendel, when I was a makeup artist at Henry Bendel, she was launching her line. We did a big press opening, and Bowie was there, and he stood off to the side, very conservatively dressed and very quiet, and let her have her moment. And believe me, she didn't need permission because she's a goddess. She's your neighbor.
Yeah, she lives up the mountain, but she is a Woodstocky girl. I mean, this is one of her many homes, y'all.
I can't. Okay, so continue.
So I've just always, because I am a no bullshit person, and yes, Jamie, the distinction is definitely clear. I definitely don't enter spaces looking for a confrontation, but I'm definitely the kind of bitch that I don't care if you're 6'5", you have 5,000 tattoos, you have a swastika tattooed on your face. If you say something I don't like, I'm going to address it. And let's be very clear, that will be the last time you do that. So I
Right.
think that is very much so different than, for instance, I just finally we just got a release date for I'm going to be you guys on Harlan Coben's Shelter on Prime
Oh,
Video, August 18th. The first 3 episodes will be out. You can catch me in episodes 2, 5, and 8.
oh my
Um,
goodness, people. Okay.
a very new age set. Now, don't get me wrong, all the directors were of a certain age. They've been around, they've directed many things, but all the new production people are young, 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 young.
Mhm.
And there was a major, major conversation about the pronouns.
Right. This is something I want to
Um,
get into. Continue. Yeah.
and I am a very, very, very highly fluid person in terms of expression and gender expression and my day to day. I mean, the
This is why
nails.
you're here.
This is why we're here, darling.
No, I mean, we're here for many reasons, but that you've mastered this. So continue.
Well, and I like to live in the space of the unknown. And we used to see this done in a more subtle way because it could be done in a more subtle way. And I think that a lot of the pushback nowadays comes from the fact that the people that we were idolizing for it were traditionally male. When you think about Mick Jagger, when you think about Prince, when you think, but I think that that's bullshit because Grace Jones was
Right.
doing gender bending and in a very mainstream way. Now, was she as
She was more
popular?
butch than any of those people.
And it was very thoughtful and it was very intentional and it was very
Oh, yeah.
artistic.
Very.
And, I like to live in that space. And we don't really get to see those people in the mainstream nowadays because there is definitely a push for the specificity and for the labels. And I remember being on set and they're like trying to figure out, are we going to say he? Are we going to say they? Are we going to say whatever? And I had said, okay, what we're going to not do is waste an hour of shooting and fuck up my entire process because you don't just call me Brandon, call me sweetie, call me baby, call me angel. But we have these people in our society in the mainstream. We have Big Frida, who
Yeah.
is called he by Big Frida's family,
Right.
called she by Big Frida's man, called she
Right.
by the girlfriends, and it's never an issue. I don't give a fuck, honestly, to be quite honest with you. I don't know if this is going to be an explicit podcast, but over at mine, what is this, honey? We cuss. So I'm cussing.
You know what? Once it makes it to my YouTube channel, there might be some like subtle editing, like
Yeah,
some
I'll try
whatever.
to keep it to a minimum, but I'm sorry.
But you
y'all,
know,
I
on
cuss.
Substack is the reason I'm on Substack is because I'm tired of being told I'm not allowed to have an opinion. I'm not allowed to say something. I'm a loving, generous, open-hearted human, as you know. We're good
Mhm.
friends.
And I think that
but
it's
I'm
okay
tired of
to
being
have-
told not to say shit.
Yeah, well, here's my thing. You can say whatever you want, right? I think there's a difference between approaching a subject with resistance and approaching a subject with a willingness to learn. And I think that when it comes to someone like myself
Mm-hmm.
and what I've experienced being a professional actor, I'm not going to say the exact show, although I may have said it on other podcasts already, but I had a meeting with my manager about reading for a role.
Mm-hmm.
And this role is going to be performed. The storyline's already been written, so we're not going to do like the whole thing about like we're changing this role. It's a comic book role, and it was originally for a transgender person.
Mm.
The role they want to have it played pre-op because I have played a single role on television that is not a man or not a woman. I will get asked to read for every single thing. And I had to have this conversation with, no, we're not going to read for this because this is a transgender person. And a transgender person can be pre-op, they can be post-op, they can do nothing. It's up to them. But we're not going to read for this because we're not going to get into this whole conversation about, well, what do you want to be considered as? What are your this? Because I don't have any. That's the whole point for me.
Well, that's tricky because then personally, I think it's like, stop telling me what you are and be who you are and like do something like that. Cause I think people, at least for me, I mean, I'm a much older gay than you are. And coming up, it was like, I didn't have any model. I didn't have any, I just thought I was the only one as a child. I was like, I'm like this weirdo, whatever. But part of our culture has always been bitch comes in and she's fierce. Like when I started as a female impersonator in New York 30 years ago, there was such diversity in that art form. Like there were the people like me who were doing like illusions of famous divas, right? All the way to like Joey Arias, who was like channeling things, but had this like very interesting, like pussycat kill kind of look. Then you had like monologists like Coco Peru, and like Charles Bush was this actress, melodrama diva. Like you had everything. But if you were good at what you did, you belong. Like they would give you some shade initially because they wanted to see if you were any good. But as soon as if you had your own lane and you did your own thing, people just went, okay, girl. Yes.
Well, and that's I would definitely agree with that. And I think about New York City as a kind of place where anyone can make it. But I can see where, and here's where I like to keep I like to keep things not vague on purpose, but I like to keep things open because I think that is also an important representation that people need. Because really what it is it's all these people who grew up in situations like yourself who felt like they were the only one.
Right.
And now they have a language to describe them. Because we can find a label. If you are someone who only wears tights and you want your partner to be the same gender but have different parts, you can find that. There's going to be a name and a label for that. And I think that's great. There are also those of us who don't give up. I'm not interested in spending 45 minutes discussing your childhood trauma, my childhood trauma, because we all have it, and the struggle Olympics of it all. And here's the thing. It's really a struggle Olympics. And what's happened is, unfortunately, we have had for a very long time white dudes at the forefront of literally everything, the face of everything, whatever. And when we're in these spaces now where things are like far more equitable, even in the LGBTQ spaces, we have like people like Queen Jean who are activists, and we have these people like T.S. Madison who are transgender people who are in the public eye and who aren't marching down a picket line, but they are starring in A-list movies, and they are getting brand deals, and Queen Jean actually is protesting and getting arrested. Guys,
some people are. I mean, that's needed to a certain extent.
But we still have these. We've
got Laverne, we've got MJ, we've got
Laverne. And people. Right? I think
Janet.
They want to see the pendulum swing in the complete opposite way. And I can understand that because I can understand what it's like to be someone who's devastatingly attractive and wildly talented, told that like, well, they're just looking for a different type. And it's like, well, okay, well, we'll see what the type is. Is it going to be a blonde bitch? Probably. And so now I see when we have this other way thing, people feel like, oh my God, there's a trans role, there's going to be a non-binary role, and they're already sabotaging themselves. Because they are thinking of the mentality that there's only room for one of us to make it. And this happens in the Black community.
What's the point of diversity and inclusion? I mean, I personally, from where I'm sitting, I see so much more, especially in the streaming networks, like so much more representation, so much more racial diversity and gender diversity, all those things. I mean, it's got to grow, and there's going to be some growing pains and some hits and some misses. Miss Cleopatra was universally panned. That's another topic. Yeah. But I'm seeing it. And what I don't see is enjoyment of that, celebration of that. Amongst the people who are poised to ride that wave, I'm seeing just misery.
Well, do you think? Are you saying that you're not seeing that from the people who are reaping the benefits of it?
No, the people who are reaping the benefits of it are just doing it. You know what I mean? They're just doing it.
We've just been like, because from my point of view, because I really don't see. I mean, like obviously, at this point, it just feels like, oh, I'll be able to play a role that's not just fences. or
Right.
not just whatever. So like that's great.
Yeah.
But
that's, I mean, yes, that's been like that for a while, don't you think?
No.
No?
No. Absolutely not. I think that it's easy to see a show like, let's talk about And Just Like That, for instance.
Okay.
They are trying so hard to like adapt and like to like come into the mainstream, but at the end of the day, they're always going to miss because the show was always about a group of rich white girls.
Right.
And having a show about rich white girls, but then just sprinkling brown people and gay people all around them.
But the industry's requiring it. I mean, you saw the Academy's new guidelines. If you want to be nominated for Best Picture next year, you've got to tick boxes. And this is the thing that, why can't there be a show about rich white girls? There's shows about rich black girls.
Well, the thing is that there's always going to be space for these people, right? But what has not changed is the people in charge.
Got it.
So when you have these same people who were producing Will and Grace in 1997, which was a show I fucking loved, but they're now producing shows in 2023, and they want to use the same. Here's the thing: they don't have any passion or any care about how things are represented. They just want to still sell,
and they want to stay in their position.
And exactly, and
that's
why we have this super slow progression in all forms of change in this country specifically. First of all, America's really young, you guys. We're going through our teenage years for sure, but people would like to see change without it affecting them. Mm-hmm. And so when you have people who have benefited, whether they realize it or not, from a certain way that things have gone, whether they're at the top of that poll or not, they're not realizing that there's an entire group of people who haven't been in this pool at all
in the game at all. Yeah, got it.
So now that they're in these rooms, they're like, no. Now, do I agree with that? I personally would love to see what I see with Ava DuVernay and what I see with Issa Rae and what I see with, these people who are, we're just giving now voices to people who haven't had these voices. We're not taking.
Yes.
Martin Scorsese's not going to lose any deals.
Nope.
There's a difference between for instance, a lot of these rules, a lot of these new implementations, they are designed and intended for a Broadway company. They are intended for. They're not, and this is another thing about the people who are in charge need to have some sort of skin in this motherfucking game because they don't know what people do on a daily basis. That's why we're having this big writer strike and we're dealing with all this stuff because the people who are deciding how we eat don't know what we do. Mm-hmm. And so they think, oh, this is a great show about the challenges of diversity in America. We'll do this and it'll sell out the house. I just think about like shows in New York, such as K-pop, A Strange Loop. These beautiful shows that
very unique,
won Pulitzer Prizes and like did so well, but couldn't manage to stay open for more than 3 months on Broadway. And
what kind of life are they going to have beyond
I'll tell you
that?
Why. Until we realize that the theater industry, specifically in New York, was built for a certain class of people at a certain time, and those people have just not died off yet. Let's just be real. They're still around.
But they're also the people who buy season subscriptions and pay the checks. You got to cultivate new audiences is what you got to do.
Because they are the people that can't afford it because the producers and this business chooses to. They could easily stop charging $1 million for tickets on Broadway. They could easily do it. They could easily do it. And they don't. And they say, well, because these are the people that see the show, because you guys are catering to these people. So it lets me know you guys really actually don't care about any sort of actual equity in this business. You want to still produce your stuff and get your awards and get your money. And if you have to put a few extra brown people in it, you will. And listen, I'm not going to hold you to it. I'm from North Carolina. I'd rather you be a bigot in my face. I'm okay with that. But what we need to see then on the other side is not to expect for these systems to change within them. No, 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 no,
Yeah.
no, no, no. We have to change the whole thing. If we
Right.
want to make this thing better, we have to change the whole thing. You guys have to, put your neck out for, things that you haven't already seen before, but now just have a black lead in it.
Right. Right.
Or,
Right.
it's just.
But there also has to be new audience development. Like there's a lot of this thing of looking at the result and then extrapolating backwards as to why the result is the way it is. And that makes sense to a degree. However, how many Black families do you see booking a Broadway theater trip to New York?
Never.
I mean, maybe they'll add, Hamilton to the agenda, or MJ or Tina, or
it's not like, I know people from Florida whose parents would be like, okay, we're going to New York for a week to see a show. It's just like a part of,
right.
Now, granted, they don't pay taxes down there, so they can afford the extra money for the ticket.
But what I'm saying is, like, cultivate new audiences. Like, what you say is correct. Like, do you remember when they did Aaron Sorkin's new adaptation of To Kill a Mockingbird, right?
Yes.
And it started out with Jeff Daniels playing the lead, and then Ed,
I can't think of it.
People help me out. No, they can't. But it was taken over by the guy. Yeah, when this is the brain. This is where it is now, guys. I'm sorry. You reached a certain age.
We're just being
I partied a lot in the 80s. But anyway, they got to a point with it where it was $500 a ticket.
Mm-hmm.
And the actors were like, the people who really need to see this play are not going to be able to see this play. So they did this thing where they took out Madison Square Garden.
Yes,
and
I remember
this. Bust in
this.
all these kids and filled it up and did the play for them, and then had talk and Q&A and stuff afterwards.
And they also need to realize that there is a Black intelligentsia. There is this upper class in all these cities, but they all come to opening night. So if people aren't, literally, they're all there opening night. It's done. They've given you the money.
Yeah.
But we don't see the bus advertisements. We don't see the phone. There's just a different level of investment for certain projects, and it makes sense because,
or at least it appears that way, and that's just as important these days. And I think you're right. I think we see a lot of virtue signaling doesn't even cover the A-list level of pantomime that goes on. I mean, don't get me started. It's all very well to stand on a red carpet dripping in couture.
Mm-hmm.
Or stand on the steps of the Met Gala in your, outrageous gender-bending extravaganza that you paid somebody $50,000 to make for you. I find that whole thing, even though it's a fundraiser or whatever, I find that whole parade.
Oh, it's just a parade for the rich. Let's be honest.
Disgusting to me. It reminds me of ancient Rome.
I will go, Anna, if you're listening. I will attend. I will pull some money out of the savings account to get me a dress made.
Yes.
Don't get me wrong.
Yes. But what I'm saying is, it's like, you're right. There is a level of, we are going to publicly, in front of all, but the problem is, and I'm gonna inject this and see what you think, because whatever. Because part of the problem now is that there are these rules. You can't say this. You can't say that. Everybody's triggered like this. Like, if you use the wrong word, you say the wrong thing, or if you said the wrong thing 25 years ago, or you retweet something that you thought was benign, you can get completely destroyed. And so people are very careful at that echelon to talk and walk the walk and 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 Ricky Gervais comes out in the Golden Globes and he starts making these off-color comments, and everybody goes,
This is the thing that we also have to realize, the difference between satire and hatefulness. And I think that it's a lot of these kids, like you said, their virtue signaling is just the tip of the iceberg, but a lot of these kids are growing up in these homogenized societies, and they have a lot of internalized hatred that they need to deal with themselves. And guess what? I'm okay with you having to deal with that. I'm okay with
Yeah.
that because you know what? In this country where they want to teach not the history, they want to teach the opposite of everything. If
Mm,
you know what's happened and you feel some type of way about it, sure. But there are ways that you can do that without being obnoxious.
right.
If you feel like there's not enough representation of you and the way that you'd like to express your gender, then bitch, walk through the streets of Harlem in that gown.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Well,
Because
yes,
we're
but
talking
not
about
everybody has the inner fortitude that you have, Brandon. That's one of the reasons why I admire you so much. I've been out since 1984. I was told in acting school, elite acting school, where, by the way, there was a token black person in my class and she never got cast as anything. So believe me, I know.
we'll go back to that.
Oh,
too,
believe me,
because-
I know.
yeah.
And that's different now. Like, you know, Juilliard is now like 60% people of color and all that stuff. It's all sort of shifting the other way. Hopefully that will foster new material and new approaches and all of those things. That's a whole other conversation.
Yeah.
But like, I had gay teachers telling me if I didn't butch it up, if I didn't hide it, learn to hide it, I'd have no career.
Yeah.
And I've never been in. People ask me, when did you come out? I've never really been in. I mean, I've always been this, you know, and I still struggle with it sometimes. Like I see myself in an interview like this and I'm like, God, you're such a queen. Oh my God, like reel it in.
Well, and I think that it's, you know, it's a lot of these kids, like you said, their virtue signaling is just the tip of the iceberg. But a lot of these kids are growing up in these homogenized societies and they have a lot of internalized hatred that they need to deal with themselves. And guess what? I'm okay with you having to deal with that. I'm okay with that because you know what? In this country where they want to teach not the history, they want to teach the opposite of everything. If you know what's happened and you feel some type of way about it, sure. But there are ways that you can do that without being obnoxious.
Right.
If you feel like there's not enough representation of you and the way that you'd like to express your gender, then bitch, walk through the streets of Harlem in that gown.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Well,
Because
yes,
we're
but
talking
not
about-
everybody has the inner fortitude that you have, Brandon. That's one of the reasons why I admire you so much. I've been out since 1984. I was told in acting school, elite acting school, where, by the way, there was a token black person in my class and she never got cast as anything. So believe me, I know.
We'll go back to that.
Oh,
too,
believe me,
because-
I know.
yeah.
And that's different now. Like, you know, Juilliard is now like 60% people of color and all that stuff. It's all sort of shifting the other way. Hopefully that will foster new material and new approaches and all of those things. That's a whole other conversation.
Yeah.
But like, I had gay teachers telling me if I didn't butch it up, if I didn't hide it, learn to hide it, I'd have no career.
Yeah.
And I've never been in. People ask me, when did you come out? I've never really been in. I mean, I've always been this, you know, and I still struggle with it sometimes. Like I see myself in an interview like this and I'm like, God, you're such a queen. Oh my God, like reel it in.
Well, I think that's, if you're going to have the fortitude to yell at somebody in a rehearsal room, that's my only thing, because I agree with you. Everybody's very different. That's why, listen, people need to go out in the streets and protest and live. People need to be the physical embodiment of excellence, and that is a form of protest.
But now we're being told meritocracy is like some supremacist thing. Like excellence isn't a thing. We have to lower the testing standards. We have to let people in who aren't qualified. We have to put somebody in charge of a pit orchestra, like I've heard through friends of mine in the music side of Broadway, who isn't ready to conduct an orchestra, but has the right skin tone.
Yeah. But
that's
you know
not the way it goes.
But on the same token, though, it has actually gone that way, because there's been many people who've gotten opportunities they don't deserve because the boss thinks they're hot, or they're someone's nephew.
Of show business. That's true.
Oh my God. I mean, specifically in I don't know, maybe not specifically in our business. Look at Donald Trump, who became the freaking president, and he did not know anything.
Yeah, and then you look at the pictures of him at Hillary and Bill at his wedding to the last one. Ivanka.
So, you know, and these are things that I also have to always, because I am definitely a person, I don't believe in black and white. There's always a shade of gray. It's never right. It's never really wrong. There's always a place I can get into with any person I've ever had a conversation with, and I can bring them to this sort of Barack Obama centrist level of we must find a way to exist in the middle, because we're never going to ever everybody agree.
Yeah.
It's just not possible. And
Yeah.
I don't want that, because I think that that's what makes humanity so gorgeous, is that people wake up every day and they have a different way of thinking. What happens and what makes it so fucked up is when you are endangering people's lives and when you are, because let's be honest, let's talk about the civil rights movement, especially with the Black community in the 60s.
Yeah.
There was the Martin Luther King Jr.'s who may or may not have been slapping his wife around.
Well, we hear some things now that's like, woo. Yeah.
We had Gandhi, nonviolence, who may or may not have been slapping his wife around. But then we have Marcus Garvey and Malcolm X, who are proponents of violence. They have this mentality because of their experiences, and I can't take their experiences away. Like, if I have been treated like that, I might be. My grandmother is extremely distrustful of white people, and it is based in fear.
That's real.
I never try to pull that away from her or take that away from her, and because I can't.
And that's a wound. That's, it's hard.
But will I let her be rude to somebody because they are white? No. And I expect that on both sides. So when I think about the Marcus Garveys of the world and the Malcolm X's who say, if a white person looks at you crazy, slap the shit out of them, I can't endorse that. That's not me. And I'm not going to endorse anybody who does that. I'm not going to say that I can't, somewhere in the recesses of my brain, understand why you might be triggered by that. But I also understand that a motherfucker might walk by me and be triggered because a bitch slapped the shit out of them at the bar last weekend.
This is the thing that you're at an interesting intersection. That's one of the reasons why I'm so interested in your take and your experience, because you're in this queer part and you're in this Black part, and they've been conflated in really weird ways that are not serving either side. It's not good at all. And, we could have a whole other conversation about whether non-binary and gender fluid is trans and, whatever, and what that is.
Or how it even could exist if it's a non. And I'm part of that community, y'all. Why can't we just ask? Why can't we question these things?
Well, here's my thing, especially in the creative space of making theater, if we're talking theater. What's always worked for me is to be interested in other people. I come in, I do my thing. People don't know. People think that I'm this big extrovert, and that I used to be told from people, by people like, years after we'd worked together, oh, I was so intimidated by you. Oh my God, you were felt so judged.
I was obsessed with you. I eat that shit up on a fucking plate. Some people
right
are
back at you.
More.
But if they only knew the level of insecurity from a childhood of walking into every room full of people, expecting to be spat upon and called a fag and beat up. Like, I always feel like I overcompensate to prove that I deserve to be there. And I go home at night and I go, Jamie, can't you just tone yourself down? Shut the fuck up. Stop being so. But they don't. And this is the thing. You would think that actors who pretend for a living, right?
Yeah.
Could have a little more discernment into people's facade and what's really going on in there. Be curious about that and feel that, have some sensitivity to that. But, they're all, what Fran Lebowitz says about listening. She says the opposite of talking is not listening. The opposite of talking is waiting. It's this thing of people are always thinking about how they're coming off and how they're coming across and and all that. So it's hard to open up. I get that. But like, I look around a rehearsal room, and granted, I'm old enough to be these people's well, I'm not going to say
auntie. We'll say auntie.
Gunkle. Auntie. But it's like, I'm here. I'm queer. I'm your elder. I could help you. Let's have lunch. Let's talk. Let me be an example to you. But instead, they look at all of my superficial characteristics. And the other problem is you think that your struggle is unique in the world. And you think that your wound and your pain and your race's struggle you've bought into this whole thing But if you're going to go after somebody and you're going to attack them for things that you're projecting onto them, are you going to take responsibility when my PTSD kicks in? When I'm traumatized by what you're doing because I had a lifetime of bullying? I'm not saying I'm better than anybody else. I'm just saying, don't assume. You can assume certain things. Like, yeah, there's been a lot of white communities with white producers doing shows that are for their audience, and I've gotten hired to do them, and great. I didn't think about it that way. I certainly do now, but I've also been a classical actor for a long time, and the classical theater has been far more open to diverse casting for a long time than really anything else. I mean, musical theater, we know. I've done many a musical in the past where there's one couple in the ensemble that's Black, and they're paired off.
Yeah, and if they didn't have to have them, they wouldn't. They just wouldn't.
Yeah, so I get all of that, but it's like, I want to be, I'm sure Will has said this to you because your hubby is the same generation as me. Mm-hmm. I feel like I'm missing out on my opportunity at this part of my life where I'm pushing 60 and I've had 30 years in this industry to be a mentor, to be a gay mentor, to be a theatrical mentor, to offer that. And I mean, if that's not going to happen because they can't relate to me, then that's your damage.
That's not the, here's the thing. I want to tap on, you mentioned about your insecurities and being able to name that and acknowledge that. And let's just be very clear. Every human being, if they have not done the work, they are also operating from a place of vast insecurity.
Sure.
And people always tell me like, oh my God, you're so confident and blah, 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 blah. And you know what, really what it is that I've never had a space ever growing up that there was praise. And you've met my mom. Like, my mom is the loveliest. She loves me. She's obsessed with me.
Yes.
But it wasn't really until my like mid-20s that I started to get like, oh, that's great. That they were so afraid, and Southern and Black people don't like the gays in the South.
Right. So that's a whole other thing.
Oh my God, no, there's nowhere that I could fit. And so I was always coming into a situation from a place, I mean, for years and years of this extreme insecurity, kind of on the defense, because I'm expecting no matter who it is, that they're not going to like what I have to offer, that I'm not going to be like good enough. And when I made the conscious choice to become Diahann Carroll,
thank you,
is when I started to realize that, oh my God, yes, everybody is going through this. Everybody is battling with their form of struggle and their form of pain and whatever they're going through. And
that's why you become an artist, especially an actor, so that you can have that empathy, compassion for that human brokenness and embody that and illuminate that.
Sadly, though, you mentioned about Juilliard's class. I have a friend who just left the class at YSD.
Yeah.
And this was a person who had been in the industry for years before going to grad school. So, like, had worked and whatever. Mm-hmm. And the language that these people are using these days and the things that they have to go through and the writers and my
and the
best
consent
friend
and the, yeah.
It really is. It's overkill to the extreme. My best friend is the director of business affairs at the Dramatists Guild, and the things that I'm hearing about writers and how they're being policed and I think that a lot of what we're seeing, like I said earlier, is that the voices that are marching the fields for us are not people who know what goes on in these rooms. They're not people who know what we're doing. And so then they're empowering people who have not been in these rooms, who are 20 years old, working on their first equity contract at whatever theater. Mm-hmm. And they think that in order to take agency for themselves and in order to advocate for themselves is to walk in with the list of demands.
Yes.
And that's not being a bad bitch, because
it's not being a collaborator either. I mean, when I think about my graduate school experience, and I was almost 40 when I went back to school. we could never have done the Grotowski movement exercises.
Oh my God.
Where we're crawling all over each other in sweats for an hour.
And I did Grotowski in high school.
Do you know what I'm saying though? Like,
it'd be it's illegal.
Impossible. Like you're doing a scene, like I did Antony and Cleopatra in a scene class for Michael Kahn, the acknowledged guru of American Shakespeare who ran the Juilliard Drama Division. In his class, I mean, I'm doing Antony and Cleopatra, and my co-worker who really wanted to work at the Shakespeare Theater and thought it might be a good idea to take her top off in the middle of our scene, unrehearsed, unannounced, just took it off. Here they are, kids. This kind of thing could never happen. Not that it should have happened then, but what I'm saying is you got to have some freedom to explore.
Well, I just encourage everyone who's listening who might be feeling this way is to what we always do as artists is we persist. Because one thing that I have to point out to you is,
yes,
when I met you, I was much younger.
And that long ago, dear.
Oh my God.
It was pre-plague.
I'm like, if it was more than 2 years ago, it was, it was pre-pandemic. So,
okay.
I have always been a younger person who looks up to those people, my Donna Migliaccio, Kevin Morrow, who you guys might have just seen as Hades in Hadestown.
Yes.
There's always been, and I feel like there's always going to be people like me out in that space, but
there's always one in every group who seeks me out and goes, what? I need to know what the 1930s were like. What old movie should I see? And I give them a list. Like, there's always one in the room that will quietly off to the side go, hey, could I like buy you a drink like after work tonight and just chat or whatever? Like you, I mean, obsessed with me or not, I saw you and I was like, that person knows who he is.
Yeah.
And has humility, the right kind of humility. And this is something that I preach a lot on my Substack. And look, I have 160 followers as of this taping. So it's not like I'm like...
That's great. There is a survival tactic of a lot of gay men specifically who survived through the 80s and got through all that shit by being reserved, not being noticed, protecting themselves, by staying. Listen, I went to Boston last year to do The Inheritance, and I was like, this is the first state to legalize gay marriage. They've legalized cannabis. It's so progressive. And what I realized is that it's not.
Good luck.
Just
Boston has a stick up its ass, always has. I'm from there, so I can say this with confidence.
But they mind their business. That's the thing. If you want to be gay and get married, you can do that. You can have your kids. You want to smoke weed on the street, you can do that.
That's old school liberalism.
Thank you. And I appreciate that. But I was thinking, oh my God, there's all these gays, the fashion of this. All of them dudes was wearing khaki shorts and Sperry's and polo shirts.
You bet.
And I could not help but think, I'm sure a few of you would like to, snazz up your outfit, but that's how you blend. Seriously, that's how you stay protected.
But that's the way New England is. And look, and every city that has like a conservative like ethos that goes way, way back, like DC. There are different echelons of the gay world in DC, and it's quite segregated. Like when I was there for grad school, I hope it's different now, but this was like 15 years ago, whatever. Like there's the crowd that goes to this particular bar in DuPont on Sunday for drinks, and they're all these kids in their Brooks Brothers button downs and their Sperry topsiders.
There's a space for that, but to say that that's our way, because let's be honest, the conservatives know that the gays ain't touching their kids. It's all y'all priests and y'all pastors and your Uncle Johnnies that's doing it. So I think.
So you're saying I'm overcompensating in my assessment that
no.
We need to be careful around children.
That these children don't need to be in a hypersexualized environment, regardless of straight or gay. I agree with that because I have seen the videos of the kids on Miami Beach at the place where I just don't want us as a community to, while we reach out and try to expand, to then still play. Because here's the thing, and this is one thing that I don't like about the Democrats. Oh, we're going into it today, y'all.
No, this is good, Brandon, because this nuance that you're offering, and tell me to shut up so that this gets across, because I need to hear this. Go.
No, I love you, and
I love you too. But I need
And
that
that's what I love about
perspective.
no, I love this about like my dad when I remember when Barack Obama won the presidency, my dad refused to celebrate. He goes, they're going to kill him. And then when Trump won, he goes, okay, that makes sense because there was no way that we were going to have that without. And he was just explaining to me, this is where you live. Most countries in the world could fit inside of Texas. We live in a mega, insanely hard to manage place. And the roots of it are for one group of people to live a certain way. And we're seeing this huge dynamic change. And a lot of the people who are trying to make the change are already in the top percent.
Yes.
Not being affected
they're trying to make sure everybody knows, I'm good. I'm not racist. I'm not homophobic. I'm down. I'm down. Yes, queen. Like
they're doing that. They're playing by the same rules. For instance, the Democrats and this whole Brett Kavanaugh shit. Stop playing nice.
No.
If they're going to come out with guns a-blazing and knives out and doing shit, let's fucking do it. Because at the end of the day, if we keep asking them to respect us because we're so clean and accomplished, they're never going to fucking do it. The whole reason that we have the rights
everyone knows that's not true.
Yeah.
But who's going to be honest? We're going to ask politicians to have that level of honesty? I think
people are approaching it in that way, and that's why you see in this trickle down people in leadership positions who just would rather not say anything because it is nuance. It's not brown people are always right and white people are always wrong. That's just not it. Now, have we been into circumstances time and time again where as brown people we've been completely disrespected, disregarded, mistreated in a space and by white people? Yes. What I do is I let a bitch know when that's happening that you're not going to do this again. It's not about coming in with a list of demands. And I had a girlfriend, she was working on an audition, Jamie. It wasn't even, she hadn't even booked this thing. It was for a hair commercial. And they asked everyone in the audition to come in and improv and say a few lines while they hold the product. She called a meeting with her lawyer, who happens to be my best friend, and said to her, how do I make sure that they don't get credit for so-and-so? And it's like, sweetie, how you advocate for yourself is you read the contract that said all these improv lines belong to the company, you dumbass bitch.
And you say something so irresistible that you book it and it's out there, and then you live on that by retweeting it and putting it on your Insta and becoming the girl who said this with the thing in her hand.
Thank you.
People are shooting themselves in the foot.
And honestly, they have been for years, and I get it. I think for me, it's easier for me to it's not even justify this behavior, because if I was in this space, you know me, I don't waste time, and we're already not getting paid the money that we deserve to get. So if y'all have some grievances, please do it after work. Send an email to the stage manager. Okay,
guys, that was part 1. Next week, part 2.